Good evening, ministers, students, parents, and guests. Welcome back to another question and answer session hosted by St. Helena Chevening alumni. The Chevening program is a scholarship fund which is supported by the St. Helenians, Dex Richards, Pamela Constantine, Tracy Williams, Tara Wortley, Cilla McDaniel, Sadella Young, and Gareth Drebble. And tonight's event is hosted or funded by one of the FCDO's program funds. Our first session was held last October when Prince Andrew School students took the opportunity to pose some questions to the candidates who were standing for the general election at that time. Tonight we welcome the students back, and along with them, some who were elected St. Helena's very first ministers. So this occasion this evening marks the first 100 days in office. Over the past 3 weeks, students have been preparing their questions and are eager to understand the political stance of our ministers. Tonight's event is being aired on Sam's local radio channel, live on the St. Helena Chevening Facebook page, and on Shore's local TV channel, Channel 31. So we say welcome to you all. So we're going to start off by getting an introduction from our ministers. We have 4 of them present with us tonight. The 5th, Minister Jeffrey Alec, has been taken away due to a family emergency, so we're a little bit disappointed in that, but I'm sure he'll be following us as well. So each of the students wanted to ask the ministers these series of questions. And the questions are, what has been achieved in your portfolio in the first 100 days? From the commitments made from your election campaign, what steps have you implemented to ensure delivery of these comments? What visions do you have for your individual portfolio? What, at the present time, has taken the highest priority? And what is the first thing that you are working to put into place or to improve? Now, we've asked the ministers they've been given advance notice of this question, so we're going to ask them to respond by answering the 5 questions that the students have put to you. So, first of all, can we get an introduction from our Chief Minister, Julie Thomas, who is also the Head of Education, Skills and Employment Portfolio?
Okay, thank you, Derek. Right, so trying to take the first question. So what has been achieved in the portfolio over the first 100 days? I don't think, if I'm to be perfectly honest, there's a whole lot of difference to what would have been seen with the education, skills and employment. It's a lot of learning. I think that needs to come across very clearly. 75% of our new council is new into politics. So our first 100 days has been a steep learning curve. So we are learning about our portfolios and ensuring that we don't come in expecting to make great changes or improvements until we understand our portfolios. So for me, it's learning and building the relationships with the people within education, skills and employment. As Derek has alluded to, I'm also the Chief Minister, so I've got some responsibilities outside of that. So it's been building the relationships with the government officers and administration to help me better understand how it is that we can improve St. Helena in its entirety, but also education, skills and employment. I, at the moment, dedicate 2 days a week, which is generally Wednesdays and Thursdays, to the education portfolio. So hopefully that will get people to understand the type of commitment, dedication that is required to try and ensure that we capture our portfolios in a short amount of time. So I've managed to go to visit all the schools as an initial visit, and the public library, Career Access St. Helena. I had the opportunity to open Career Access St. Helena, lifelong learning, and the St. Helena Research Institute. I've obviously met them. So it's been basic introductions and getting to understand the overarching policies and procedures that goes within education. If I can then go on to the second question. So my commitments in my campaign, my election campaign, was very much about being an open, government, a communicative government, and if anything I'm really proud of about our 100 days is that we as a council have tried all we can to ensure that we communicate to the community of St. Helena and that we've got open channels for the community to also feed back to us and to encourage our public sector, our government administration, everybody within, whereby they can communicate back to us. Because to take St. Helena forward, we need to have two-way communication. I've also talked about the need to look after our environment in our election campaign, and Minister Sipiu will talk more about the work that she does within her portfolio. But I know that with this team, including Minister Alec, that's not here with us today, everything that I've said in my election campaign is what the 5 ministers and the wider council are focusing on to take this island forward. With regard to the vision for our individual portfolios, I think it would be fair to say for education and I guess for everything on St. Helena, we need to have an inclusive government, one that ensures that we look after everybody, or indeed the opportunities are shared with everybody, but it is some responsibility of the individuals to ensure that they take the opportunities when they come knocking loud or quietly. So that is one of the things that I'd say is key on the agenda. What at this present time is the highest priority? Well, I think the highest priority is getting our structure in place and our frameworks for the new council. We are a new ministerial council government, and it's going to take some time. We'd like to have said that in 100 days we would have all the structure there. But with that said, as much as we'd like to aim and continue to get that done, having all the induction programs and having post-election seminars with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association has given us some insight of the things that we need to take into consideration when building the structures and frameworks, because they need to be structures that we can work within, that is flexible enough for us to change and ensure that it allows us to capture what it is that we would like to do to take St. Helena forward. The first thing that I'd like to improve upon, I think I did say that, wasn't it? I did mention that one? Yes? So I'll move on to whoever else Derek would like to speak next.
Thank you. Can we move on to the Minister for Health and Social Care, Martin Henry?
Hi, all. Like the Chief Minister, one of the most important things which one of the most important things which I have been working on, like the Chief Minister has just said, is actually building the relationships and the foundations with the portfolio director and the portfolio staff, so that we can move together with health and social care. So it is hard to see any physical improvements within a health system within 100 days, and I mean, hopefully I will be able to see some within the 4 years of my term. We first must understand that when we say health and social care, we're talking about large entities. So my understanding of health is very limited to the health promotion and how to move, and more to the sport side. But health itself, it's mental health, it's health promotion, it's the dentist department, there's also the general hospital, and that's on the health side. And social security side, there's a big list of things which goes from fostering to respite care, and there's lots of things in the background which both health and social care does to support our community. Obviously, we sometimes highlight all of the negative bits that come across, but in the background, staff are working really hard towards some of those care services that I think that we need to bring to the forefront a lot more. So, there's fundamental issues. There's issues with funding, with our population, which I'd like to talk to you about later, because our population demographics needs some serious looking at, and looking at how we can resolve some of those problems. And also, obviously, the staff and issues that we have at the moment, largely around COVID and around getting people here in such an isolated community with the world demand on health services. So, like I say, in my first 100 days, it's been a bit of a baptism by fire. There's been a lot of things that has happened, and a lot of it has been firefighting. But I am here also to try take both, very important structures forward strategically as well. As for what has taken my highest priority at the present time, firefighting. So it's been primarily the hospital side of things, which looks at which is appointments, staffing, overseas medical referrals, the COVID issues that crop up. So it's been a lot of firefighting at the moment, and to be quite honest, there's been a very limited time I have managed to spend on strategic issues around health, but there are some. So the first thing which I'm starting to work on is our health promotion. Although everyone sees health promotion as a long-term strategic plan, the problem with long-term plans is we keep putting them off, and we keep saying, "Oh, that's long-term," so we wait longer, because it's not in our face right away. So I think health promotion needs to get off the ground. We need to start looking at some of the issues that we have in our communities, and we have to be upfront about them. And that's a start, by actually acknowledging some of the issues we have with both health and social care here on St. Helena. There's also issues around the overseas medical referrals, which is out for tender pretty shortly, and we'll probably talk more about that at some stage. There's also a nursing review of the terms and conditions, which is going on at the moment, because we need to retain some of our key staff, and we need to also upskill some of our key staff here. If I just move on to the commitments from my campaign. So one of the things which I am quite interested in at the moment, and working with the portfolio director who initiated this, and I said a few things about it on the radio on my last interview, was what we call our joints, is our state of the nation. So in the UK, they do state of the nation reports pretty much for local counties, and then they do a larger one for the whole nation. And basically what it does is incorporate all of the different things. So for instance, out here we say, we go, what about the water quality? Is it causing issues? So let's test the water quality. Let's get it done. We talk about all of the things which contribute to what is the state of our nation in terms of health. And we've already got experts on board who are supporting us with finding the state, or helping us to find the state of our nation. We will then use that piece of work, such an important piece of work, to then move forward with all of my and the health directorates and social care strategic inputs. So it will be a foundation piece of work that we can build on to move forward, and it will be done by professionals. In terms of my vision, I've said my vision a couple times, but my vision is to provide an updated and more robust health and social care system that acknowledges and focuses on holistic health. We need to start focusing on holistic health instead of just our physical health. We need to start looking a lot more at mental health. We can just start to examine right now what being stuck in our so-called fishbowl has done to us for the last 2 years. And to some degree, I think we've got a bit of fishbowl frenzy at the moment, but that's up for another discussion, I think, as well. Health needs to be a holistic approach, and we all need to become a part of it. We need to help each other with this. That vision goes on to more strategic stuff, like looking at becoming affiliated with a larger NHS trust to help us with all of our with some more of our needs. And finally, sorry, what was the final one? I helped you, Julie, but I can't find my final. Yeah. Oh, well, I think I'm finished. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister Henry. And just, I doubt whether you can speak a little bit higher, everybody, but they're having some difficulty in hearing us in the gallery at the back. So if we can, just try and speak up a little bit more. Can we have Minister of Treasury, Infrastructure and Sustainable Development, Minister Brooks?
Thank you, Derek, and hello, everyone. So, what has been achieved in my portfolio the last 100 days? Well, my portfolio, as you're quite aware, is quite a huge portfolio. So I'll have to admit, I haven't spent as much time within each section of my portfolio as I would have liked. But I think just to focus on one thing that I think is very important, and I think Chief Minister touched on this, is about building relationships. So building relationships and trust within my portfolio and also within government and the wider community, because, you know, the people that voted for me or not voted for me, I'm still here as a minister. So I have to also now, play a role in supporting those people as well. So I think that's very important. I also think it's important that we reach out far than our shoreline to other overseas territories and try and sort of build relationships with them. You know, I feel that in some areas we share common ground, and, we can join up forces and sort of share information and so on. And so just before Christmas, I was fortunate enough to have a mentor session set up with a minister in Gibraltar. I think his name is Albert Isola, if I'm pronouncing that right. But he is the minister in Gibraltar for finance and public utilities. So we were able to set up a a Teams call that we use nowadays. And that went on for about an hour or so, and it was a good discussion. He gave me a lot of advice about stuff that he deals with in Gibraltar and how to deal with his community and so on. And it was a really positive meeting. And what we agreed to share information, he actually suggested that he do help us in certain areas. And since then, he has sent through some information. So I see that as an achievement, because that is sort of building relationships with other territories and obviously, getting them and working with them to help us achieve what we want to achieve. So also I know we attended the JMC right at the beginning, and there's another minister for Montserrat who's a minister of finance. So sort of next I'll be sort of looking out to see who I can sort of make contact with, and I have sort of, we share sort of common things within our portfolio. So that is something that I would be keen to excel on going forward. What's the next question? Right, so the commitment from my election campaign. Well, I'm not sure if I would say I committed to anything, but I did sort of talk a lot in my election campaign about new streams of revenue. I think that's important for the island, sort of going forward, looking at bringing in new monies. Obviously, that will help in every portfolio that that ministers sort of is in charge of. For instance, in our health, if we had extra money, obviously we could put more money into health. So that is, for me, one of the main priorities within my vision, and also, what I'm doing within my portfolio. What else is there? So at the present time, what is the highest priority? So I guess, and I think for us, because we are ministers of our portfolios, but we are also EXCO. So in a way, we're responsible for everything. And so I think my main portfolio would be Martin's portfolio, and that is health. My main priority or highest priority would be Martin's portfolio, and that is health. So we would try from our portfolio to do everything we can to assist, and that, of course, is looking at new streams of revenue. But as a government, I think we all recognize that health is in a pretty bad state at the moment, and we need to sort of focus our resources on health to try and bring that up a little bit to a better standard. Wouldn't say a much better study. What was the first thing you're working on? Okay, so what is the first thing that you're working on? So I think, again, like I said, as part of my campaign, it was about looking at new forms of sort of revenue. So looking at niche opportunities to attract and facilitate new streams of revenue. So one of the areas that we are looking at for new streams of revenue is through our companies register. So we, I don't know if you read any of my manifesto, but I did talk a lot about new streams of revenue, about blockchain technology. So looking at new forms of technology in that. So we have made contact with a specialist consultancy company to look at the blockchain sphere and what niche opportunities they think that we could tap into to make new streams of revenue. And so one of them is smart contracts, and that was sort of also in my manifesto. So I've carried that through with the help of my portfolio, my sustainable development team, and we've now completed, or the consultancy company has completed a feasible study and has identified some niche opportunities. So we'll be very keen on moving forward with that. So I think that is part of the improvement as well. The improvement is to try and improve on our SCDP, our Sustainable Economical Development Plan, which is sort of based around, new streams of revenue. So I think that plan has been in place now for some 4 years. And as far as I'm aware, we're not seeing a significant difference within that plan of bringing new monies into the island. So I think an improvement to that plan and new items on that plan or new areas to look at would be an improvement. So I think that's about it. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next Minister of Environment, Natural Resources and Planning, Christine Sipiu.
So good evening, listeners, viewers, and people who are in...
Can we just switch the microphone down, Mark, please? There we go.
Okay, so I'll start again, if I may.
Thank
So
you.
good evening, listeners, viewers, and everyone who is in the gallery this evening. So if you don't mind, instead of going straight into my ministry, I think we need to recognize that we are a new government and we do have new members. So in the beginning, it was actually trying to build relationships with all of the members of Legislative Council. It has been very bumpy because, like I said, it's a new form of government that we need to understand. For me, trying to understand the transitional period, because as you all know, I was on the previous government under the committee system. So trying to gauge and understand in going into a completely new era. So it has been quite bumpy, but I feel that we do have a new team, and I know the backbenchers are here this evening to support us. And so in the first 100 years, we're not that old, 100 years, it is trying to bond with our colleagues, understanding their personalities, understanding their strengths and weakness, and how we can help each other in going forward as a government. So as for me, as a Minister of Environmental and Natural Resources and Planning, I would say I've been starved green. And the reason why I say I'm starved green is because I don't know a lot about land planning and building control, forestry, fisheries, the environment, biosecurity, and agriculture. So my ministry covers quite a wide range. So I'm like a sponge at the moment, trying to absorb all that information. And that information is overload. And sometimes it is like wind shear, because it just go right over my head. So I hope that you can appreciate this evening, even with our listeners and viewers, that it has been a bumpy ride, we have been trying to deal with trying to get to grips of our new form of government, building relationships with our members of Legislative Council, still trying to find a balance in meeting the demands of our constituents. So although we have reps within each district, there are constituents who still contact us directly. So for me in my ministry is that, like Minister Brooks mentioned, we had a lot of training, and we haven't been in the ministry as much as we would have liked, because they're all corporate business of government that we need to deal with. But for me, what I've been trying to do, and as I said, my ministry covers quite a wide range. I've been trying to get out in the field and talk directly to the staff, because they are key to me in my performance. They're the ones who got the experience and the skills, because I need to be mindful that I am staff green. So for me, in what I've achieved, or what I'm trying to achieve beyond the 100 days, is building the relationships with the staff within NRP. Also, trying to understand the structure of the new government. So advisory boards have been set up, which the ministers will chair, so that any policies or any decisions that need to be made, it will be the ministers who will make that decision. Also, we're trying to streamline development applications coming to Governing Council for a decision, so that we can put more ownership onto the Land Development Control Authority instead of bringing in non-strategic development applications to Governing Council. So for me, I don't have all the questions in front of me, so I'm just going to summarize it in the way I have got it written down. So during my campaign, I didn't publish a manifesto. My signs just said, vote Scipio, because I felt that being a councillor for the last 12 years, people knew what I stood for, and that is having an open and inclusive government. And as you know, that we need to recognise everybody's needs and disabilities, and we've got a deputy speaker who is disabled, and it is an eye-opener for government to ensure that we are disabled friendly. So the vision for my portfolio is about food security, and so agriculture has played a high, has been on my list since being a minister in November. And with the support from my backbenchers, we've been going out to engage with the farmers. So thank you, backbenchers, for that, because what we want to do is have more local produce on sale that is quality, quantity, and accessible at affordable prices. So for me, that farming is very key to me, and also the highest priority is about the energy and water strategy, so that working together, meaning the 12 members working together in trying to achieve affordable prices for the entire community. Can't do it on my own. I will need my other 11 colleagues to support me into that. Also, during my campaign, it would be about holding government to account. So by having these ministers now, I hope that the people and you as students will hold us to account. Another priority for me will be the how we deal with invasive species. So it all comes back to agriculture. How we manage and control our land so there's a use in a more productive way. So I guess I gave you a summary. I hope that that covers all the questions that you had raised.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to start now with the questions from the students. We're not going to introduce the students. There are 10 of them sitting to my left, and they're going to introduce themselves when they ask a question for the very first time. So can I hand over to Amy?
Hi, my name is Amy and I'm in Year 12. Outside of your portfolios, what other area are you particularly passionate about?
Hi, Amy. During my campaign and all the time leading up to this, I have been green, green, green. So I am very passionate about not only the products we should put on our bodies, but the products that and how we should look after our environment, sustainable development. Using green technologies to move our island forward. I strongly believe that because we are a small island, that we could take our island almost offline with a reasonable amount of money, and it would make us less dependent on the British government. We're not spending £2 million on buying diesel from 7,000 miles away, and all of the carbon footprint that goes with that. With today's technology, we are seeing batteries become so good. We're seeing technologies with actually bringing down water from the sky using hydro panels. So we no longer have to wait till it go in the ground and drain it out and drill big holes. We can actually we can actually extract drinking water from the sky. So the technology is available, and I want our island to be an island that stands out in front of the rest and show the rest of the world that we can go off grid and we can be a green island. And just finally, to add to that, by becoming a green island, I'm always on about energy because I come from a retail industry that demands huge amounts of energy, and the cost of that energy is passed on to the customer, you. So if we can reduce the cost of our energy, we can reduce the cost of our goods. We can reduce the cost of producing our goods. We can reduce the cost of storing our goods, and we can reduce the cost of fresh goods to our people of the island. So besides being someone who wants to promote health and shift our population from the current trajectory that we are on, I'm also very, very keen on promoting our green agenda. Thank you.
Minister Brooks?
So I think I have to share what Martin said. For me, I think the most interest, because of the importance of it, is energy and water policy or strategy outside my portfolio. Because, like Martin said, that the cost of energy, the high cost of energy on this island is a big barrier for economical development across every sector. So if we can bring down the cost of energy, we can almost bring down the cost of producing anything across the sectors, from food security to a better healthcare system, so on, even to a better education, and so on. Because that is what I see as one of the biggest constraints. I think it goes, the reason why too, because it's so important for my portfolio, sustainable development, and it goes hand in hand. The cost of energy plays a big part in enabling any investment opportunity in that on the island as well. So I would say outside of my portfolio, that would be one of the biggest interests for me, only because of the importance it plays for our island.
Thank you. Minister Scipio?
Right, thank you. I'm so thrilled. I'm certain that the listeners and the viewers are thrilled as well that two of the ministers here this evening is very supportive of what I was saying earlier about energy and water strategy and our utilities. So I'm certain that you're all pleased with that. I just want to say that since being a councillor in 2012, I've always sat on the education committee. So for me, being a mum of two, that the passion outside of my main ministry would be education, and I would support the Minister of Education all the way when it comes to educating our future of the island, as I saying.
Chief Minister?
Right, thank you for that great question. To be honest with you, I don't think it will come as any secret to a lot of you. Sustainability has been at the heart for me for many, many years. So sustainability, I've got a keen interest in finance as well. So I think all attributes that we need if we're going to try and get this island becoming self-sustainable, and I won't go through all the reasons why we talk of self-sustainability. We need to engage and ensure that we have good and stabilized health and social care system. Christine's portfolio is key in doing that because she has our natural resources that we've got quite a lot of here on St. Helena, and what we need to do more to promote when going forward, especially when we talk about the blue and green agendas. On top of that, I have a keen interest in people. Communication and understanding and valuing our people stands very high on my priority list. But just to give you a flavor of how this ministry works, and indeed soon, we've been talking about the vision way back in November, actually, when we made some interventions in joint ministerial conference. So it's no secret to where this government would like to head. Backbenchers know of that theme as well, but in between CPAs last week and again this week, we're really desperate to get our vision out there. So I'm going to share with you an overall kind of catchy phrase that we're going forward with in draft form, I may add, at this stage, because we need to share it with backbenchers. We're meeting with the private sector tomorrow evening, so we'll be getting their input as well to ensure that this is all encompassing. But if I share that with you now, you'll probably see how the whole 5 ministers come together in putting our vision together. So at the moment, it says our vision focuses on sustainability, being one of the key words, whereby we seize the opportunity, looking down towards Minister Brooks, to meet the needs of the present and progress without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So that will give you an insight of how we see our government going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we get to the nitty-gritties of it all. But before we do, the owner of a public service announcement. Look at this. Car registered number 4214, who's in the hall here, you've left your lights on. That's 4214. Okay. So the students, we move on to the students, and our next question is going to be asked by Brooke. Brooke, you can nominate the minister who you would like to answer the question, or if it's a general question, a minister, if would like to pick it up, then you do so. Over to you.
My name is Brooke. I'm in year 12. Can you, Martin, answer this, please? The current 10-day quarantine goes up to the end of March, and we understand that we'll be reviewing this in February. What considerations will influence whether the quarantine period will be reduced?
So, Brooke, I think it's only right that I start with some of this, but I think the rest of us will contribute to it. As you've just probably heard, all over the media last week, we were pushing out for what was a VVIP trip that we wanted to come to St. Helena. Not going to go into all the details because we went on over and over last week about it. And as it stands, one of the main reasons that we couldn't, or that further negotiations was necessary, was because of our health system. So what we're really saying at the moment is that we can't stand up to an outbreak of COVID on St. Helena at the moment. There is recruitments out at the moment to try get a whole range of staff. I think it's like some 20 recruitments, and 10 of them are nurses and doctors and anesthesiologists. There's a whole list of people that we would like to, that we would need to have to start moving the quarantine. In saying that, we will not stay still. We understand the one thing we gained from the exercise we conducted last week is that we actually got in touch with far more people across the community than I think we've done in the past. And there is now, there is now, looking across the spectrum, there's the willingness to start actually discussing this, because I think, this time last year, no one wanted to talk about this. I think when you talked to us last, no one wanted to talk about this. There's a much bigger willingness for the community to discuss opening up. As I said to you earlier, I think that the fishbowl effect has got to us a little bit, and we're starting to see that we need to move on. But we have to consider our health, and we have to consider our population. But I can say here and now that we as ministers are discussing topics around it. So sorry for not being able to give you a very precise answer, but the constraints, we are working on that constraint. And I think when we have a little bit more idea about having the recruitments to be able to stand up Bradley's primarily, then we will definitely have a far more in-depth discussion about doing it.
Chief Minister?
Thank you, Brooke, for that question. I think that's a burning question on quite a lot of people's lips. So, yes, we did a lot of this last week, but we've been doing constituency meetings late last year, and that was one of the topics on our agenda that we went round to all the constituents with, the districts. So we've been gathering information on how people thought, and it's interesting to see even how that shifted from November, December to having that conversation last week. So constituency meetings, we've been engaging with the portfolios, so all of the ministers have been asking their portfolios what they think. Obviously, you sitting across the room from me tonight, I asked you that when I met with you in our initial meeting. I know not all of you, but I think some of you through Student Council. I asked what you thought about quarantine periods and COVID and obviously our vision. And then Martin will bring back to the table for us the science and the medical evidence that comes with making such decisions and the appetite from the private sector and our business community. We can't sit still without taking on board the strain that's placed on our private sector at the moment in regard to their businesses because of the 10-day quarantine. But to help to enable us to make this decision, we've had very successful vaccination programs rolled out as well. And, we need to look at what other options is out there for us as we go forward in ensuring that we've got everything we can possible to help to mitigate the risk of a community spread. So, there's talks of the antiviral pill and all these things that we are constantly getting updates from the UK government and requesting from UK government as well. So there's a range of different things that will need to be considered when making that final decision, Brooke.
Okay, and Councillor Odeen, Sepew.
So thank you. So I think we also need to be confident that we have all the resources in place to be able to deal with an outbreak in a community. So for instance, I'm certain you've heard about the oxygen plant. It's still not in operational yet. There's been some delays in that. The Minister of Health talked about staffing, so we need to ensure we have adequate staff to deal with that. We also need to have protocols in place, an action plan, so that everybody knows what to do at what time if an outbreak had to take place. So for me, we need to be confident that we got everything in place to deal with an outbreak before we reduce the quarantine.
Thank you. Minister Brooks?
Hi, Brooke. Could you just repeat the question? I didn't quite hear all of it.
You just need to switch yours off, Minister, but thank you.
The current 10-day quarantine goes up to the end of March, and we understand that you'll be reviewing this in February. What conditions will influence whether the quarantine period will be reduced?
I think in addition to what the other ministers have said, and then this is a bit outside my portfolio, I should say, it will be led by health mainly, but I think we could do something with our testing regime. So I don't necessarily feel that testing on entry is right or wrong, but I think it could be that testing within quarantine. So we could do, because at the moment we're testing on entry and then we're testing at the end of quarantine, a 10-day quarantine. But we're not gathering any data between those periods. So I think, even if you leave out the testing on entry, but test within the quarantine, I think you're more likely to pick up when people are showing symptoms of, bear in mind that they've been tested 72 hours before arriving here. I think by testing in quarantine, you'd then be able to pick up, get more data on when the symptoms are showing up, if there is any at all. And then you could probably look at reducing the quarantine, to reflect some of that data. But right at the moment, we ain't capturing any of that data.
Thank you. Do we have any supplementary questions? Jamie? Brooke?
What needs to be done to shorten these time intervals between our testing, like you said? Like you want to shorten the intervals between the times that you want to test these people for COVID so that you know when they have it, you can catch it earlier. So what needs to be done so that you can make sure that you can allow these intervals, these shortened intervals?
Minister Henry?
Brooke, I mean, you answered the question yourself. So we have to actually just test at those intervals. So I think what Mark is saying, that we have been discussing this around the table as well, and we have been discussing, do we actually trial this while we still have a 10-day period on to actually see, at what stage we are picking up COVID, if any do come. So the idea though of testing 100 people, who comes on a flight, at day 3 and day 5, these are logistical issues as well when that we are trying to perform, like I said earlier, with loads of staff members down from the health service. So the one thing, and I don't want to make this an obstacle, but this is for real. We are 20 members down in the health service, and half of them are frontline nurses, and the next half of them are the people who manage the system. We don't have a health director. We from next week we won't have a chief medical officer. We don't have an anaesthetist. We one surgeon down. They are critical roles. So as much as I would like to sit here today and say, we are really moving forward and we really want this to happen. These are critical roles that have been out for recruitment now for the last 6 months or so, and that we are finding very difficult to attract people to. And we are changing the parameters. For instance, in some cases they have been, they've lifted the role so to increase the pay packages. They've spread the net to try and recruit from different areas. So these are genuine issues that we are faced today. I do have a plan B, but it's a pie in the sky plan B, and that's to be able to have a stand-up a stand-up flight that would come here in case if we have a COVID outbreak. I've reviewed all of the data that people have, and again, this is just my plan, that all of the data that people have put forward to us, and all of the things that would allow us to open up. And what we could do there is actually, work with the FCDO so that we would have a medical flight that would come here on outbreak that could bring all these, rather than having the resources on the island just waiting on COVID to break out, why not have the resources available if it does? So there is all of these discussions that I would like to have, and my portfolio director probably going to kick me now because we're not even discussed this properly yet. But we have to start looking at out of the box actions to be able to move forward with this island, because like I said to you earlier, I am seriously concerned about the demographics of this island right now. I am seriously concerned about the amount of young people we are losing at an alarming rate, and that has to come into the picture as well. We can't continue just to be talking about physical health. We have to start talking about people's mental health and what it is doing to this population of people. So it is a bigger picture that we have to start to address when we start to look at some of these decisions.
Thank you. Sorry, Minister Brooks, we're just trying to limit it to one response to the supplementaries. Do we have any more supplementaries to that question? Jamie?
My name is Jamie. I'm a Year 12 student. Following the booster vaccines, how else will you ensure St. Helena's safety from the coronavirus? And how do you plan to implement these safety methods?
Minister Brooks?
I think it's a sort of a tough question, because you're sort of asking something that, how we move forward with our sort of regulations and quarantine. And that's the discussion that we're having now, and debating about it and trying to find answers to something that is a quite contentious sort of subject. I think the testing regime is probably one of the ways that we can move forward. In my opinion, I also think that, like I said, like Martin said, we need to have our health service in order first too. So that would be probably the options that we have to look at first.
Thank you. Zach?
My name is Zach Berger. I'm a year 13 student. Chemo patients will be at high risk if an outbreak were to occur or if the quarantine period was reduced or eliminated. What is an alternative or separate place where chemo patients can have their treatment without the risk of being infected?
Minister Henry?
Zach, I won't lie to you. I've actually not looked at some of that stuff yet, so it would be wrong of me to make suggestions that we haven't even discussed. But first and foremost, if we do get an outbreak, we would want to try to keep that away from the general hospital. We have the oncology facilities to deal with chemo patients. There's also like Julie mentioned earlier, there's the antiviral pill, which seems to be quite effective with helping people with further complications to their health or other conditions. So there are a number of things that we could look at to support that. But right now, we haven't went that far into detail with that support.
Thank you. Can we move on to the next question? Amy?
In the early announcements of the VVIPs, it was said that ministers want to make the decision with the public. Some feel that you were asking the public to help decide, but you were voted to make the decision on behalf of the public.
Chief Minister?
Thank you, Amy. I think we've heard a few people say that also, but I have to say what's come back to us is that the majority of the community really embrace the opportunity to be part of that. Not once did we need or say that we wanted them to make the decision. We are quite capable and we understand when we took on the roles as ministers that the decision, any decision really, would sit with us. But when, and this is speaking on behalf of the whole council, I think when there's decisions being taken that will impact, whether good or bad, the community of St. Helena, we really need to know what the community thinks. So that was the purpose of it, whether it be VVIP or if there was a change. I'm sure if when energy strategies and when we get down to the nitty-gritties of anything that will impact the entire society, we would like the feed-in from the entire community.
Thank you. Jade?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, just one moment, Jade. Minister Henry?
Sorry, I was just going to add to Amy's question earlier, and it is just a statement really, because imagine what would have happened if we had just kept that decision around the table and made it ourselves without telling anyone. I just think there's a counter argument to that one, which is which we must consider.
Thank you. Jade?
My name is Jade. I'm in Year 12. The public aren't aware of all the same information that ministers have. What if during a consultation like this recent topic, the response from the public is not in the best long-term interests of St. Helena?
Can you repeat that, Jade?
The public aren't aware of all the same information that ministers have. What if during a consultation like this recent topic, the response from the public is not in the best long-term interests of St. Helena?
Chief Minister?
I think I mentioned that when I was asked by the radio, actually the radio stations, they asked if it would be all to do with the feedback we got from the community. And I think I remember saying this in the public meeting as well. We need to strike a balance, so it's not always just about what the community says. You are correct. We do get more information. With regards to this topic, though, we put out as much information as we possibly could with regards to the remit of the visit. We haven't provided the names of the people, but I don't think that would have taken any different decision with regards to helping the community to understand the trip that was planned. But what we do is listen to the community, we look at the information, and indeed we take decisions that is in the best interest of St. Helena. We have to, because we need to understand if we take a decision, if it is something that impacts negatively on the island, that's more of an outcry and a fallout for us as a new council than it would be if we took an unpopular decision. But if we explained why we did it, I think then the community would better understand.
Hannah?
Do you see this form of consultation forming part of your decision-making process moving forward?
I kind of, so basically, I think what I said before is very much the same. So what I said was, if it impacts the entire island, if it's something that's going to impact everybody's life, then yes, I think consultation would be. If it's something that is much smaller and is going to impact a specific sector, it might not be wider consultation, for instance. And then again, if it's commercial, a commercial sector, then yes, then that wouldn't probably come out to the general community.
Hannah?
The reason we have asked this question is because the cancelling of the UK Titan flights and restarting of Airlink. Why was this topic not discussed with the public?
Minister Brooks?
You're right. It wasn't discussed with the public, but it was talked about a lot in our constituency meetings. The reason why we took that decision was because that we had a contractual agreement with Airlink, and obviously we were negotiating during COVID, but then there was always pressure on to restart that flight based on a contractual agreement. Titan was also booked on an ad hoc sort of basis, so we were sort of booking Titan, on an as needs basis. So it was also costing us quite a lot of money. The Titan flights was only sort of viable when they were completely full. When they were coming here, sometimes with 17 passengers on, it was costing us like £70,000 or £75,000 per flight. On average, over the time Titan was flying, it was costing us about £36,000 a flight. That money comes directly out of our budget. The contractual agreement we have with Airlink means that if they do lose out, the FCDO would replace that loss of money. So it doesn't come directly out of our budget. As you know, if our health system is in a pretty bad state, and it has been ever since we got elected, we had to make the decision where to use that money and where that money could be better used. So we decided and made the decision to go back to Airlink, and in doing so, we could then sort of use that money and try and put it into areas that was of a greater need.
Thank you. Hannah?
Derek, sorry, Hannah, can I just add something one little bit more human to that? At that stage, we were very new council and very new ministers as well, and we are feeling our way because we're new to politics with how we engage with the public. So it is a bit of a trial and error until we strike the balance. So maybe at the beginning, that is something that we should have done. But with the last one, we sat around the table and said, this is something that we have to take out to the public. So it's a good question, and I think if we just share some honesty, then I think it's also part of the reason why we probably didn't bring that first one out to the public as well.
Hannah?
How many people have had the booster vaccine on Ireland?
Sorry, Hannah, I not got the stats on me, but the last, it was over 2,000. And that was today. We had stats today. Eh? Sorry, I just didn't bring it with me. But the numbers are well above 70% now or in that region.
And one last supplementary question, Hannah?
How will St. Helena now receive future vaccines that are needed if flights are only from South Africa?
Minister Henry?
Again, Hannah, I've not got the answers to that question, but there is plans to bring in future vaccinations. There's obviously all of you and your peers who go into the right age bracket, so we're going to have to continue this as long as the vaccines is seen viable.
Okay, thank you. Can we move on to the next question? Can somebody get Luke a microphone? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luke Bowers. I am a Year 13 student. And in light of the recent allegations against Prince Andrew, what are your thoughts on the renaming of Prince Andrew School?
Chief Minister?
I guess we knew that one was coming. No, thank you, Luke, for your question. Obviously, that is something that has been talked about prior to this as well. But we have to think really seriously about this as well, because it's not just about the name and the fact that because at the moment he hasn't been found guilty. That's the first side of it. The second is like you're posing here tonight. You've got a lot of branding because all the uniforms would have to change, yes. And then the biggest one, which I think would impact you most of all and those doing GCSEs, is Prince Andrew is the examination centre. So we'd need to think about how that would impact. So it's not something we haven't been talking about. I've been speaking with my portfolio director, and I know she's been liaising with the school. So it's something that we're working on in the background should that have to be taken. But it will cost quite a lot, and it's a cost we would have to consider, especially if it was not just an allegation now, and it became that it was a definite. But it's not something we haven't thought about.
Okay. I think we're going to take a break right there. We're going over our time a little bit. So just everybody else can take part in the room. Just something for our people who are listening to us on the radio and watching us on TV. The audio for this part of the event will be cancelled, so you won't be able to hear anything we're saying, we hope. But you'll be able to see everything that's going on around. So we'll see you back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Now we're on. Right, thank you very much. Welcome back to our 100 Days in Office debate and questions. And for those listening and for those in the gallery, we've been given the go-ahead to continue until 8:30 rather than 8 o'clock as was initially planned. So we're going to move on, and we're going to start with Amy with the next question.
The government has removed the scholarship budget during a time when the focus has been on trying to help upskill saints to compete for TC posts. What are your plans to encourage students to continue with university studies so we can form part of SHG succession plans too?
Amy, thanks again for the question, and I can guarantee you with all the council sitting here, our aim is to always make sure that you are a part of our sustainable development. Again, going back to our vision, part of our vision is investing and valuing our people through upskilling, training, rewarding them, and being inclusive. So that will always be something we'll fight hard for. Obviously, getting financial aid or grants and aid from the UK, the whole world is under a lot of strain at the moment because of the pandemic. So we know that we were asking all the portfolios to look at cuts, and the other side to that coin for education was that the option came to us that we could apply as St. Helena for student finance. So for us to try and get a budget through asking for student scholarship to continue, I can almost say the FCDO would have said, but you haven't even tried to get into student finance. So it's never not to encourage our young people. It is to always encourage you. It's still a very new scheme, and students that are due to leave later this year and those following behind know just as much as we do because it's so new. But we are working with our UK representative, Mrs. Kittle-Warboys, and she's just returned to the UK to get more information and better understand what it is that we need to do to be able to access student finance, and also to be able to determine whether student finance will work for St. Helena. So we must try, and if it doesn't suit us, then we've got a better case to put forward to FCDO to say it doesn't work. With that said, being the type of government that we are and looking at new ways to go forward, it might mean that we need to do some communications and liaison with the Bank of St. Helena. There may be options there. As I said before, I'm a keen communicator, so if it is that student finance is the way to go, we will need to obviously provide that information to yourselves, but to the wider community, and ensure that parents know what it is that's being made available. But please be assured that we are not forgetting about you.
Thank you. Josh?
Hi, my name is Joshua Hearn. I'm a Year 12 at Prince Andrew School. And I would like to know what incentives will you put in place to ensure that St. Helenians students will return to St. Helena following their studies if scholarships are taken away?
Chief Minister?
Okay, so we are also working on a graduate scheme. So that's something that's in the pipelines as well. I am being asked to comment on that, and as much as I want to get that done as soon as possible, I'll be honest with you, the workload at the moment has been extreme, so I'm hoping that I can have a response back with regards to that, to show the support, because the graduate scheme is to ensure that there's communication with the students before they leave, and communications whilst they're there to understand how they're progressing, and indeed for St. Helena government, the plan this is at the moment, by the way, it's not a confirmed scheme, and for the private sector to be able to cater for the graduates when they return. And obviously, we are looking at a scheme that hopefully would be more attractive to ensure that people would return to St. Helena.
Thank you. Brooke?
Having no scholarships will impact the less fortunate the most. How will we ensure that there is a fair chance for everyone to go to university?
So I think, Brooke, that's what we're talking about now. We need to learn more about the scope of student finance and be able to understand what limitations will be placed upon our students or indeed families. So we are trying to gauge that information from student finance, and that is something that I'm working closely with the portfolio director and I'm not going to get a title right now, but Ms. Charmaine Henry. We're all working together with Mrs. Kettle-Warboys to ensure that we better understand if the student finance is indeed suited to St. Helena and our students.
You want to add, Martin?
Sorry, Brooke, just to add, and this is something that I've looked at in the past, but I'm sure part of the student finance program in the UK itself was set up to enable students all to be able to attain higher levels of education. So I think that was the principles behind student finance, to be able to get people from all different backgrounds and all different means into higher education. So the principles should be already incorporated in the system.
Thank you. Okay, can we move on to the next question then? Laura.
There have been suggestions that the payment for sixth form education will once again be removed. Many students rely on their sixth form payment for not only themselves, but to help lift some financial burden from their families. With the removal of the scholarship, have you considered the likelihood of future students continuing education past year 11 and the implications?
Chief Minister, you want clarification?
Have you considered the likelihood of future students continuing education past year 11?
So I think, as we've said before, we are in a bit of a predicament right now. Finances from the UK is extremely tight. We've talked about the state of our health service, but we are all at the moment also we haven't had confirmation on what our settlement will be for the upcoming year. So until we are just going through negotiations with that. So until we better understand that, I can't commit to saying what is going to happen. But indeed, it is something that we would have to review and understand, because we understand how much it means to the students.
Yeah. Then Hannah, you're the next question.
What are your plans for regularly consulting or engaging the young people in our community with issues affecting them during your term?
So I think this is the opportunity to probably expand upon the vision, to be perfectly honest with you. So just to reiterate, our vision focuses on sustainability, whereby we seize the opportunity to meet the needs of the present and progress without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So I think we've used words like sustainability quite a few times in governments now and in the past. And I do question, and I know ministers do as well, do we really understand what sustainability means? So we're going to provide a statement that says sustainability for this government is providing a foundation for our community and businesses to first consolidate, then develop, and finally aspire to a prosperous future through a coherent approach using our unique but limited resources. Opportunities is setting a path for our island that focuses on niche opportunities, which will welcome new streams of revenue that will require little demand on natural resources, limited land area, and overcome constraints of our geographic location, size, and population. And progress will take decisions that moves us forward as an island to ultimately get us closer to achieving the desired outcome for our community. But at the heart of our vision, there's going to be three main dimensions, and that's going to be the environment, economics, and social. And if we've got social under there, our policies that we'll continue to do is improved internal and external communications and engagement. So it is always our desire to communicate effectively with all age groups.
Yeah. Hannah?
Our studying timetable does not allow a lot of time to listen to the radio at night or during the day. We are often told that we are the future of the island, but ministers have not come into school to talk about what is going on and issues that are affecting us. Why is this?
So I think, like we've said, 100 days may sound like a long time, but if you think of it, it's like a term, one term for you. If you hadn't had a structure to your education, do you think you would have achieved as much as you have done in previous terms? So if I can build that kind of picture, this is what it's been for us. A term, and I don't mean 4-year term for council, it's 7 weeks or thereabouts for us. And we've come in, it's a new government, we are expected to build a structure and the framework. We've been expected to build relationships as 12 councillors with our speaker and deputy speaker and the wider public sector, our administration and portfolio directors. That is key to us becoming a really strong government. So finding time, we've had constituency meetings, we have had a joint ministerial conference virtually to ensure that we had the opportunity to integrate with the overseas territories. So what we're doing now, we've just come out of the post-election seminars, we've had the VVIP, so coming into the schools is certainly something that is hot on our agenda. But I think getting our vision compiled and coming out to show you and demonstrate to you what it is that we're looking to achieve is key and important. We have, though, so that for the listening public, through the education skills and employment, we have captured the students' views when we compiled our vision, because that was asked through the head teachers and the student council. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister Scipio, briefly.
Thank you. Just to say that the former government included the students in their constituency meetings. So when we quarterly go around to constituency meetings, we did make ourselves available to come across to Prince Andrew School to engage with you all as well. And also we did try to resurrect the Youth Parliament. So if you're sitting around the table this evening, you're interested in helping our members of the Parliament to do that so that your voice could be heard, then it is something that we could take forward.
Thank you. One more supplementary. Hannah?
We appreciate you might choose to engage with some of us in school, but how do you plan to engage with the youth that have already left school?
Minister Scipio?
I think I just mentioned Youth Parliament, because Youth Parliament is not just about students in school. It includes individuals up to the age of 25, so they are school leavers. So even the listeners or the viewers, if you're interested in becoming a member of the Youth Parliament, then I think that is the way to go.
Thank you.
Can I just bring in one more thing there, and that's about our social media, because we do have a Legislative Council page on Facebook, and I would look towards the backbenchers. They're the ones that is updating that as well. So that's another means on how we're hoping to communicate as we move forward.
Thank you. Move on, Brooke, your question?
A high proportion of the population is unhealthy and needs to exercise. What plans are being made to promote healthy living and exercise?
Minister Henry?
I take that once for me to start with.
Yeah, don't everybody jump.
No. Thank you, Jamie. I'd like to first correct your statement. Unhealthy living isn't only caused by exercise, and exercise is very important, but you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. I've made that statement on many occasions, and I'll just make it for the listening public again. So it is a combination, and it is a holistic approach. In terms of exercise, I see it as something that we should be more focusing on for our mental health, because it works in combination. We need to take a far more holistic approach, I think, to health in general. And again, I've said this on quite a few occasions. We need to bring in
all of our stakeholders. So we've just started to do a whole systems approach to diabetes and to obesity, and it's something that started in the background, where we've brought in stakeholders, so people who do gym sessions, people who are members of our community. There's one from education. So it's an engagement group that is being trained by a university in London to look at what is systems approaches and what are whole systems approaches. So it's an academic piece to start with. So we're training quite a few of us. I'm part of the group being trained, so I'm not hidden it. And we're going to take it from there as a core group to go out and start training other members in the community, and just to try engage with people about what it is that is causing some of our problems. When you said about exercise earlier, St. Helena is not an ideal environment for exercise. We all look out of our doors, especially if you live in Half Tree Hollow, and you go, oh my God, look at that hill. So I understand that there are different things that we have to do, as Ireland is unique in its circumstances. So we have to look at possibly engage. I mean, one of the things I really want to do, and that's going forward, is look at the use of electric bikes, electric push bikes, because what they do is they take the effort out of the exercise, and it helps you combat the hill. So it is just that's just a personal view of mine, but we need to take a whole systems approach as an Ireland. And you should see a lot more coming out from the health department, now that I'm there, about health promotion. We've also just starting today is our dietitian. So finally we now have a dietitian on the island to help do the other side as well. So we are taking a full-on approach, Jamie.
Brooke?
The existing sports facilities are becoming overcrowded. What are your plans for developing sports facilities on the island?
Minister Henry?
I'm just going to hand you over to Minister Brooks now, because he's going to make us some money so we can start pulling. No. Obviously, the limitation with sports facilities here is the money at the moment. And you're quite right with saying about how many facilities are being used. But there's also, I think we have to engage the whole community again. You may see sports at your age as something which you're really into, but there's probably an older population who likes to walk, who likes to go and cycle or do different sports. So personally, I think before we look at pouring in huge sums of money into our sports facilities, we need to look at the engagement. We need to look at what people want to do, because sometimes we tend to just look at it from our own perspective. Now, again, just being honest, I've been caught out in there many a times, so just thinking everybody want to do what I want to do. So I'm trying to take an approach across the board right now. We have to update our sports facilities, but we also have to look at other methods of just getting people together and engaging in these type of activities.
Thank you. You're going to add something quickly?
Just to make a comment is that, as you know, we only became elected late last year, and we had to hit the road running, and budgets was on the table, and majority of us are new in trying to understand the process. So I don't think that it's fair to say that no consideration hasn't been given, but for the next budget, we didn't have any time to even give anything any consideration because of the timing that we become a member of the Parliament in discussing budgets.
Thank you. Can we move on? Next question, Pascal.
Hi, my name is Pascal, and I am in Year 12. What are your plans to help ensure that St. Helena is attractive enough to stop the large numbers of saints migrating overseas for work and financial reasons?
Minister Brooks?
Well, I can try and answer this, but I think a lot of different sectors plays a part in doing that. Obviously, trying to bring down the cost of living is one of a big factor in that. Also, the availability of land and affordable housing is another big factor in that. So I think, that's just two big factors. There's a lot of other factors in there too, like a education system and a healthcare system. So I think that question extends right across the portfolios. Even Jeff, who can't be here tonight, security is another big part of that sort of puzzle to put together to be able to have an inclusive life, a family life for St. Helena. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done right across the sectors. So I can't give you an indefinite answer or pinpoint one thing. I think it is a combination of all portfolios working together.
Thank you. Can we move on to our next question? Zach?
It is said that the minimum wage is going to gradually be increased. What other measures and steps are going to be taken to support this increase?
Chief Minister?
So I think so I'm going to just again talk about the policies that we'll be focusing on, and that will probably give some sort of an umbrella of what it is that needs to be looked at together, so that we don't. So to be able to get a good health service, Mark needs to be bringing in new revenue. To be able to get healthier people, we need to be bringing in food security. So if you see how we all integrate here, immigration, Jeff's not here this evening, but immigration is key for us as well. We need to grow our population so that more people need the products and services that our private sector, for instance, provide. So it's all about bringing together a balance so that we can better encourage people to stay here and to grow our island. Zach, if you could just repeat that question so I can specifically answer what you're doing, but I just wanted to give you a holistic view of all the different things we need to look at.
It is said that the minimum wage is going to be gradually increased. What other measures and steps are going to be taken to support this increase?
So, as I said just then, we are looking at health and social care. If we can improve the health and the social care environment on St. Helena, and if we could increase businesses for our business, then obviously with the minimum wage increasing, our people could get paid more for the work that they do or the businesses that they run. So it's really about trying to pull everything up together to be able to get that minimum wage up. If the minimum wage goes up, I would hope that we would be able to sustain and maintain a lot of the younger people that are leaving here today, because not all go away for, dare I say, better jobs. It's all about the better monies that the jobs attract elsewhere. So it is very much, like Martin has been saying, a holistic approach about how we go forward for St. Helena and the better future that we all need to be able to sustain ourselves.
Minister Henry, briefly.
Just briefly, Zach, I think the thing that we have to worry about as a ministry, though, is that obviously we have what I call on St. Helena a capped economy, which is just pretty much dependent on aid, and there's little bits coming in and out. What we have to be really worried about is increasing the minimum wage, and then businesses increasing their cost and services, and then the minimum wage increase means nothing. And although some businesses has indicated that this won't be an element, it's hard for it not to be an element in a capped economy, which is not bringing in new and fresh monies, because it's the same money circulating. So we have to be very careful that we actually do what is right for our people without just ticking a box to say we've stepped it up, but however, your cost of living has just stepped up with it. So it is an important consideration.
Thank you. You don't want that supplementary now? No, okay. Can we move on to the next question then? Laura.
Will sufficient money be allocated to the regular maintenance of public faculties to ensure that they are hygienic or usable?
I think that was about, can you just say that again, please, Laura? I just didn't hear it.
Your microphone. Thank you.
Will sufficient money be allocated to the regular maintenance of public faculties to ensure that they are hygienic and usable?
Again, sufficient money. That is the key. So I think what I can say, though, we do have a policy, and we are working on it and updating it, so that we we kind of streamline the money, or not streamline, we kind of focus the money into the areas of priority, because there isn't enough money to do all of the maintenance on the island. If you include built heritage and everything else, you can see that it is deteriorating over the years. The point, what I think, as Martin trying to make as well, that, you know, for a number of years now, we've been getting almost like a balanced budget or a flatline budget, but the cost of living is going up. You know, the cost of materials is going up, so that money can't be stretched as far as it did last year. And the following year, if we get the same budget, it won't stretch as far as again. So there is a generally a knack on our infrastructure and on our buildings and our built heritage and everything else. But I think the only way that we can change that around is to try and look for new streams of money.
Thank you. Josh.
So I understand tourism is a critical part of St. Lena's economic strategies. Yachties are part of tourism, the tourism market, and have been our only consistent visitors since COVID-19 affected travel. What measures or procedures do you plan on putting in place for St. Helena to be more welcoming to our yachties?
Yeah, Minister Brooks.
So it's ironic you asked that question, because only today in my advisory board meeting we had this discussion, and the discussion was around our yachting community. Bear in mind that we are in a yachting season now. So what has been a constraint? What are the constraints is that, again, our healthcare system is very limited with staff. So at the moment, we're only testing the yachts 1 day a week, and that's on a Thursday. So if the yacht arrives on a Thursday evening, they'll have to stay on board until the following week, Thursday, which is not ideal. So I've asked my sustainable development team to put together a little proposal to identify the potential loss in revenue that this is causing us. So for my portfolio, I have to look at new streams of revenue. I have to look at all the money coming in and try and capture as much as possible. And so we understand that the health care system is very constrained, as I said. So we are looking at taking some of the administration that health currently do and bringing it more into government, so we kind of share in the loads. Obviously, we're not going to perform operations down the castle or anything, but we're going to try and help out with the administration. So I think going forward, we could look at options of training someone else to do these tests. For instance, other parts of the world, you actually do the tests yourself, so you don't have to be a trained practitioner or a medical background to do the tests. So why can't somebody else do the tests and do it on a more frequency basis for the yachties? Also, there is a capital funding program, so the EDA program. So under the EDA program, there's a micro budget, so a small amount of money that you can use on certain projects that you can that can be implemented within a year. So small things that can be achieved quite quickly. So I'm very keen to put a business proposal forward to the EDA project to improve the middle steps, the railings, the safety elements of it, and I'm hoping it will extend as far as improving the shower facilities and the toilet facilities and the washing facilities for the yachting community on the island. So we have identified that, and we are talking about it right now because we're right in yachting season. So I think it is important going forward, knowing that we don't have the usual tourists that come here by year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to our next question then? Jamie?
Where do you see St. Helena and its position in the world with the arrival and implementation of the cable?
Minister Brooks?
I think that was for me. Okay, I think for me, Jamie, I sort of spent a lot of time in the UK, and I sort of arrived there just at the time where the internet was being rolled out. A few years later, they was rolling out fiber optic cable to all the houses. So I've actually lived through the transformation of fast, affordable broadband directly to your house. So I can see firsthand the benefits of that. So what I would like to see the UK see on St. Helena is that we come up sort of in par with the UK. That it is very important that we have fiber speed cable to all the houses. It's very important that it is affordable, but I think equally as important, it needs to be accessible. It needs to be accessible wherever you are, not just in your house, but when you're out and about, you can also have a connection to the internet. If I use one example, I sit around with my friends a lot, and sometimes, I'm sure you do as well, someone will ask a very interesting question, and nobody will know the answer to it. But, if you had access to the internet, you could just Google it. And then you could find the answer, and that could spark off a whole new conversation and new thoughts. And this is how we sort of learn outside of our normal classroom. So I think accessibility is key in seeing the wider benefits of this cable.
Thank you. Brooke?
With the arrival of the cable, what plans do you have to ensure that we are kept safe in this digital age?
Can you repeat that for him, Brooke?
With the arrival of the cable, what plans do you have to ensure that we are kept safe in this digital age?
Your microphone, Minister, thank you.
So I don't know if any students would be familiar with this, but there was a gentleman on Ireland just before Christmas, Wes Lewis. He was sent here as a consultant. He also works as a consultant for the British government in cybersecurity. So he was sent here to look at areas that we lack our cybersecurity, which is quite a lot. And he also talked to a huge range of stakeholders, including government, worked quite closely with the IT section in government. And he's gone away and he's produced a report to try and, a report with recommendations to try and plug those gaps that we lack with our security. So that piece of work is just being done now. Obviously the cable is going live, so we really need to be working on getting that implemented, not just in law, but also, in infrastructure. So that piece of work is being done right now.
Thank you. Can we move on? Pascal?
Where do you see St. Helena positioning itself on the international marine conservation platform?
Minister
Like I
Scipio.
say, Pascal, I'm starved green. So, no, as Chief Minister said, I'm not starved blue. So the marine, the platform, the international platform, I think that we've had a lot of support from non-government organizations in the UK and donors in helping us to be able to achieve our marine management plan to protect and sustain our species here on the island. So I think the question was about international platform. I think we already hit that platform by engaging with the non-government organizations in the UK and also with donors. For instance, like Blue Belt, the ICAT, they are all international. So I think we've already hit that platform with our lovely, awesome marine environment here on St. Helena.
Thank you.
Are there any plans to develop marine-related industries such as ecotourism or aquaculture?
Not to my knowledge, it hasn't hit my table, but I believe that there is some work ongoing in relation to marine tourism. So officers are working on policies and the legislation in that respect. So we are slowly looking at other avenues.
Thank you. Can we move on? Zach?
Where do you see St. Helena positioning itself for the use of renewable energy?
Okay.
I think all ministers are fighting to answer this.
Okay, only one going to answer that, right?
This question. We have, as the listeners, the viewers, and possibly yourselves here in the gallery tonight, that in our sustainable economic development plan and our 10-year plan and lots of plans is that we would be 100% renewable by 2023. And we had heavily relied on an agreement with Patch Global, which took a lot of years with negotiating, and it has now fallen through. So my personal opinion is that we will never achieve 100% renewable energy by 2023. So the aspiration is to move forward with our energy strategy, and conversations is being held with Connect St. Helena because the strategy is in place. Conversations being held with Connect St. Helena as to how we can move forward with that. So there is an aspiration, but we are on the back burner because of things that, negotiations that have fallen through. But as we said earlier, with our energy strategy and our water security, it all encompasses everything in moving the island forward.
Thank you. We're going to move on to domestic safety and security. Luke, the first question. Immigration. Sorry? Oh, sorry, Amy.
That's okay. Immigration can be a contentious topic. Can you provide an update on the Minister's attitudes to our immigration policy?
Okay, so as you know, Minister Alec isn't here tonight, but we will try collectively if I miss anything. I can tell you that this entire council is pushing hard for the immigration ordinance to come forward. Minister Alec is working with his portfolio to complete what he needs to do, and then he will share this with Minister Brooks to get his input from his portfolio, and then it will come out to the wider council. And then depending on, is it going to go to consultation? Yes, it will go then to consultation. So that's one of the key ordinances that we're working with that we'd like to see progress very quickly.
Thank you. We're going to drop the other two questions and move over to the back. Now it's your turn, Luke.
What are your views on the recreational or medicinal uses of marijuana?
I think I'll try and answer that one. So my views on recreational is that I don't think it is a good. I don't think we'll see any benefits from it from a revenue side, but I do think we could potentially see benefits from it from a medical side. So a while ago, not long after arriving back on the island, I put together a CBD, I'm calling it, proposal to the previous government. I'm not going to talk about the previous government because you're here to talk about us, but it didn't go any further than that. So that same proposal I actually presented to this government, and all of them was in support of it. So I think what we are going to do now is try and look if there's still a market out there for it. We need to sort of crunch some numbers again. Remember, my proposal was done 4 years ago, so it was based on the current status then. Things have moved on a bit now. So I'm actually now in a good position to sort of follow this through my sustainable development team. So I think the next thing that we need to do is try and establish a market that might be through a third party, and then also try and sort of establish how should I say, or give an exemption so that we can sort of test our product and sort of get it sort of qualified or tested and what is the word I'm looking for? Yeah, so sort of that, I mean, if you get an exemption, and that is the idea what to do, to try and sort of grow the right formula or the right strands of seeds here that is high in CBD and low in THC. And then we send that off to get it analyzed and tested. That should give you what your value of your crop is. And then we need to sort of find it if there's a market still for that. sort of value of that crop. So it is something that I think we can take forward as a product, as a business, but it would only be for export only. It wouldn't be sort of for recreational use or anything else. So the idea is to, eventually, long term, is to change the laws to allow companies or corporations or any private sector to apply for a license and then grow under controlled conditions and then ship the product off island.
Thank you. Brooke?
There is an increase in antisocial behavior amongst youth, and yet youth organizations are having their budgets cut significantly. What do you plan to do to curb antisocial behavior amongst youths?
Minister Henry?
I think the budget cut thing is a bit preempt. No budget has been cut yet, so I'm not sure where that information come from. But to link antisocial behavior, first of all, directly with youth enterprises having their budget cuts, I think is something that we could argue the case about for and against. That there has been periods where youth organizations or having large groups of teenagers in a youth organization, which has been unmanaged, actually creates antisocial behavior. So we have to be very careful about how we make a direct link between money and youth organizations, etc. So I'll leave it as that because there hasn't been a cut to the budget yet. There has been recommendations across the board, just in case that we as a government needs to take a cut. And if we need to take a cut across the board, so for instance, we have to cut some of our primary functions, then that is something that may have to happen to those organizations as well. I mean, imagine that we are trying to say, let's cut education and then let's hold up another organization. So I think we've done some exercises just in case our budget doesn't come in as a break-even budget. But if there are cuts, then that is something that we will all have to take very hard because we're already struggling, as you all know. But you know, it is something that could possibly come out of this budget. We can't tell yet.
Thank you very much. Briefly, Minister Scipio?
Very briefly, just to say that all directors against St. Leon government had to look at what would be the risks if there was a reduction in their budget, and that was also applied to non-government organizations. So they had to submit what would be the risks if their budgets were reduced.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, that's it for this evening. Time has sort of eluded us. Firstly, thank you, ministers, for supporting this event and addressing at sometimes seems very sensitive subjects. Thank you also to the students on my left for your interest and your courage to participate in tonight's session. And whilst there were only 10 of them asking the questions, I can assure you there was a lot more of them networking behind the scenes. Thank you to the Education Department for agreeing time from the students' curriculum and recognize the importance of getting our youngsters engaged in Ireland affairs. And thank you to SAMS for your live radio broadcast. Thanks to the sponsors Shaw for sponsoring the live broadcast on local television and the Facebook platform. And finally, thank you to the foreign FCDO, Chevening Alumni Program Fund for funding this event, and to St. Helena's Chevening alumni for bringing these debates together for the benefit of our local and international community. Those of you who are watching on camera back home, there's going to be some live interviews in front of the camera, so don't go away from us. But everybody else, thank you very much and drive safely home. Thank you.
Good evening. I think the evening went really well. The students performed and asked some very pertinent questions, but I think have helped to show their complete interest in the Ireland politics. Generally, I think the students have performed really well, and well done to them. They've done themselves and the school proud.
Thank you.
Do I just say it? Okay.
Sandy, how did you think the evening went? This was your first time attending. Did you enjoy it?
I certainly did. It was very interesting. And of course, excuse me, just to see my son interacting, and actually he's been very supportive of the questions he's asked. Is very, for me to hear all that is brilliant. The students are doing well getting involved, because having these ministers, having our government the way it is running right now, I think there's a positive way forward. And as being a self-employed person, I'm looking forward to more and to support my child and like they're supporting us. So I'm sorry I'm looking at the camera like this because I don't like the camera, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, I look forward to the next one next year, I hope. Okay, thank you.
We now have Chief Minister Julie joining us in front of the camera again. Thank you so much, Julie. Would you like to give us some feedback on the event tonight?
So I think it's been a really great event. It's lovely to be able to hear from the students and the youth of the island. I must, before I forget though, thank Derek for the great work that he does in his chairmanship, because it makes it really, really easy. So thank you to Derek. But the students have done well. They've talked about a range of different topics, and it's given us the opportunity to come out to the community again and give them an insight of the work that we do as ministers and indeed elected members. I'd actually encourage more of this. Hint, hint, Tara, with your team, because I think it's a great way to engage with the youth. But I also think, as we talked about communication being two-way, participation needs to be two-way as well. So I think we need to encourage our youth to actually join the platform whereby we've got adults and the youth, because at times segregating the youth from the adults. So when we have constituency meetings, youth, I'd like to see you all come there as well, because sometimes we lose the voice of the youth, and then we as the community sometimes think we know what the youth thinks, and it's necessary for them to be a voice for themselves as well. But it's been a great opportunity, and it's nice to see how everybody's taken the time, and it was brilliant to be able to have another chance to get out there and talk about the work we do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.